I don't think you're being truthful with me. John told me you took her out there for one reason. You were going to stab her because she's been meddling in your business. It's been a long, long day, and I don't want to sit here and have you lying to me again. Did you get her to come out there because you were going to stab her? Did you get her to come out there because you were going to stab her? Yes.
In the spring of 2011, more than a year after 19-year-old Kathy Chou vanished without a trace, her friends suddenly discovered a chilling detail. The new girlfriend of Kathy's ex-boyfriend was wearing shoes that once belonged to her. Why would a girl be wearing shoes belonging to someone who had been missing for over a year? Could they be a trophy from a premeditated murder? And where had the killer, someone Kathy once loved and trusted, hidden her body for an entire year without anyone knowing? Welcome to the Case Files, where we unveil shocking criminal cases, analyze criminal psychology, and recreate haunting investigative details. Today, we're diving deep into a tragic case that occurred in the peaceful town of Renton, Washington, USA, where an immigrant family from Taiwan witnessed their worst nightmare when their only daughter disappeared one night in April 2010. In this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the infamous case of the Kathy Chou murder case, when love turns into nightmare. Part 1. A peaceful town and the missing girl. Setting: Renton, a family paradise. Renton is a peaceful suburb of Seattle, nestled along the shores of Lake Washington, with beautiful natural scenery. It's an ideal place to raise children, surrounded by fresh nature, friendly neighbors, and residents who regularly hike and help one another. No one could have imagined that in April 2010, this tranquil town would be shaken by a bloody tragedy. The fateful morning, April 19, 2010. On the morning of April 19, 2010, Renton police received a missing person call from the Chou family. Henry Chou and Debbie Chou, a couple who had immigrated from Taiwan to the United States 19 years earlier, hoping to create a better life for their daughter, were in a state of desperate panic. Their only daughter, Kathy Chou, 19 years old, a senior at Lindbergh High School, had disappeared. The last time they saw Kathy was the previous evening, around 7 p.m. on April 18th, when she said she was going out for a walk and only took her cell phone with her. Her parents agreed, never knowing it would be the last time they'd see their daughter alive. A few hours later, Kathy still hadn't returned home and wasn't answering her father's calls. Around 9:30 p.m., Mr. Henry received a text message from Kathy's phone number sent to his work phone saying, "I'm at the mall with friends and will be home soon." But Kathy never came back. The victim, an innocent girl with dreams for the future. Kathy Chou was a vibrant, friendly 19-year-old who had many friends at Lindbergh High School. She was very close to her parents, people who had sacrificed everything to bring their daughter to America in search of opportunity. Kathy had just returned from a school field trip to Oregon on the afternoon of April 18, 2010, before disappearing just hours later. On the morning of April 19th, Kathy's friends began to worry when she didn't show up at school and didn't answer texts or calls. They felt something was off, but still tried to think everything was fine. No one imagined that Kathy was already gone. Part 2. A stalled investigation and strange suspicions. Technology leads and first suspects. Detectives believed modern technology would help locate Kathy, so they immediately requested phone records to determine who she had talked to and where her phone was. While waiting for results, they interviewed Mr. Henry to learn about his daughter's friends. Mr. Henry said his daughter had many friends, but he didn't like many of them or what they did. He even said, "We should have stayed in Taiwan." One name quickly rose to the top as the most suspicious: Ezekiel James Watkins, 22 years old, known by friends as J.K., Kathy's ex-boyfriend. He had dated Kathy for about 3 months and was 2 years older than her. They met at school and had the same group of friends. First interview with J.K. When summoned, J.K. said they were still good friends after breaking up, but also admitted the breakup was very difficult for both of them. Shortly after breaking up with Kathy, J.K. started dating Jemmy Malo, one of Kathy's friends, which caused Kathy immense heartbreak, to the point where she completely cut off her friendship with both Jemmy and J.K. He broke her heart, Kathy's friends said. J.K. stated that on the evening of April 18th, Kathy texted asking to meet, but he declined because he already had other plans. He went to his friend John Carpenter's house at 7 p.m. and stayed there all night playing video games. John Carpenter confirmed J.K.'s statement. I clearly remember not seeing or talking to Kathy that day, and J.K. was at my house all night. He didn't leave. To be certain, police asked J.K. to take a polygraph test, but according to records, J.K. initially refused and then agreed to do it. Suspicion of J.K. was temporarily set aside. A secretive family and unusual hesitation. Police returned to the Chou family home to request examination of Kathy's computer and personal belongings, suspecting she might have been talking to someone online. But surprisingly, Mr. Henry refused, saying he wanted to find his daughter, but wouldn't cooperate in that way. Police found this extremely unusual. Most parents allow examination of their child's room and belongings when the child is missing. On April 21, 2010, after 3 days of fruitless searching, police once again requested the computer, but Mr. Henry refused again. He said he would have someone he knew check the computer first and then report the results to police, even though police explained that turning it over to forensic experts would be faster and safer. This secrecy made police suspect the family was hiding something, and they decided to summon both Mr. Henry and Mrs. Debbie for questioning and requested they take polygraph tests. Mrs. Debbie refused, saying she couldn't pass the test because she was too grief-stricken and stressed. Mr. Henry agreed to take the test, but was very emotional, constantly crying and mentioning his daughter, so the test results were unclear. It couldn't be determined whether he was telling the truth or lying. The truth behind the secrecy. Police talked to neighbors and discovered that the Chou family was an extremely private family. Neighbors said they had never been invited inside the house, and even Kathy's friends had never set foot inside. The family only welcomed close blood relatives. Detectives gradually understood. The Chou family, as immigrants, might not fully understand their rights and obligations in America. They might want to protect their privacy, or simply had been taught from a young age not to trust police and feared working with law enforcement. Finally, Mrs. Debbie explained. The day police requested the test coincided with Kathy's birthday, something police didn't know at the time. Naturally, her state of mind at that time was extremely grief-stricken, and she understood that if she took the test, the results would be affected by such strong emotions. When everything was explained clearly, police realized they weren't intentionally hiding anything, but were just grieving and confused parents facing tragedy. After that, they officially cleared all suspicion from Mr. and Mrs. Chou. Part 3. Online Secrets and the Final Trace. Hidden Online Life. On April 22nd, Mr. Henry Chou officially turned over Kathy's laptop, extremely important evidence. Forensic experts examined the data and discovered a secret online life Kathy had been living. Analysis showed that Kathy had registered accounts on multiple dating websites and was chatting with many different men at the same time. At the time of her disappearance, she was in contact with 8 men, and at least one of them had been prosecuted for assaulting another person. Kathy liked making friends with guys, frequently talking to new people. She was somewhat naive, like many 18, 19-year-old girls. But could any of these people be Kathy's killer? Phone data and final location. Detailed phone records showed that Kathy's phone sent its last signal at 9:48 p.m. on April 18, 2010. But the detail after that truly alarmed police. The data showed the final location where Kathy's phone sent a signal was Boulevard Park, a very popular place with teenagers, often chosen as a meeting or dating spot. After that time, there were no more signals from the phone. Investigators suspected that Kathy might have arranged to meet one of the people she knew online at this park, and that person might have killed her. But there was another important detail. Records also showed that throughout April 18th, Kathy and J.K. had exchanged 43 text messages and calls with each other. Total dead end. The polygraph test results of the 8 men Kathy knew online left investigators at a dead end. All of them passed the test, and police had to release them one by one. While police had no more leads, Kathy's friends didn't give up. They distributed flyers everywhere, created search pages on social media, and even went looking for her themselves at Boulevard Park, where the last phone signal was recorded. However, all efforts were futile, as if Kathy had vanished without leaving any trace. Police set up a hotline and received many calls from the public. One woman insisted she was almost certain she had seen Kathy sitting in a car, drunk and screaming. But after verification, the person in the car wasn't Kathy. Most calls fell into similar situations, full of hope, but then disappointment. On May 1, 2010, police conducted a search of the area near Boulevard Lane Park, but found nothing. Time passed. The investigation increasingly hit a dead end, and detectives began to doubt whether they could decode what had really happened to the 19-year-old girl. Part 4. Spring 2011. The fatal shoes and shocking testimony. Unusual detail. After 1 year, spring 2011, 1 year had passed since Kathy disappeared, and her friends still hadn't forgotten, still hoping for some miracle. But what they discovered made everyone shudder. Jemmy Malo, JK's new girlfriend, who used to be Kathy's friend, started wearing to school a pair of shoes that looked exactly like the shoes Kathy used to wear many times. Kathy's friends immediately recognized them and were suspicious. Those are Kathy's shoes. Why would Jemmy be wearing shoes belonging to a missing girl? That detail was so bizarre, so haunting, and made them even more suspicious. But they weren't sure and didn't dare ask questions. Anonymous call and breakthrough testimony. On June 22, 2011, police received an anonymous call from a female student. The girl requested to meet privately with police and said that Giovanni Candelario, a friend commonly called Dew, knew what had happened to Kathy. The next day, June 23, 2011, Doe was summoned to the police station, and he gave testimony that shocked investigators. "I know something that could help you solve this case." Doe said he used to be in the same class as Kathy through a friend named Eden and was currently living with John Carpenter, the friend J.K. said he had stayed with all night when Kathy disappeared. Doe recounted that on the night of April 18, 2010, J.K. had returned home around 11 p.m. in a state of clothes covered in mud and blood with a cut on his lip. When Doe asked what happened, J.K. replied that he had been mountain biking and fell, getting dirty. A few days later, Dew went online and discovered Kathy had disappeared, and he began to suspect, especially when J.K. showed unusual behavioral changes, becoming curt, aggressive, prone to stealing, and cold toward friends. "He completely changed. I didn't recognize the friend I used to know," Dew said. Why did Dew wait over a year to speak up? He admitted that initially he didn't think it was suspicious, but in the months that followed, he noticed Watkins changed completely, even becoming violent and attacking John Carpenter himself. Additionally, Dew said Watkins had stolen money from him, and when Dew confronted him, Watkins didn't deny the accusation that he was involved in Kathy's disappearance. John Carpenter's testimony. Truth unveiled. Police began to suspect Dew's testimony was just to get revenge on J.K. over a personal conflict, so they summoned John Carpenter again to verify. Initially, Carpenter still maintained his previous statement. J.K. was with him all night. But then, under police pressure, Carpenter said something strange. Maybe I was dreaming. I daydream a lot, and the dreams are very real. That answer raised huge suspicions, and police began to pressure the group of friends. J.K. started trembling, panicking, and finally collapsed. Later, at the end of June 2011, Carpenter finally admitted the truth. On the night of April 18, 2010, J.K. had called him around 9 p.m., saying he needed to borrow a shovel to bury one of his ducks that had died. Carpenter agreed and handed over the shovel a few miles from Watkins' house. Watkins was riding a bike and left. But what was suspicious? Watkins lived on a farm, so why would he need to borrow someone else's shovel to bury a duck? Part 5. Confession and the Journey to the Grave. Final interview with J.K. In July 2011, police summoned J.K. again. This time, Detective Chuck Barfield, an expert in serious cases, directly conducted the interrogation. When asked about the night of April 18th, J.K. still repeated, "I went to Carpenter's house around 5 to 8 p.m. We played video games all night." But this time, Detective Barfield placed on the table a copy of the cell phone location data for both J.K. and Kathy. Both phones sent signals at Boulevard Park around 8 p.m. that night. J.K. froze. Barfield asked, "Did you see her that night?" J.K. replied, "Probably yes." And finally, he admitted they had met in the park and argued for 2-3 hours about J.K. dating Jemmy. J.K. said he was angry because Kathy had warned his new girlfriend about his anger management issues and violent tendencies. Psychological tactic, the shovel in the evidence bag. Detectives used a sophisticated psychological tactic. They placed a shovel wrapped in an evidence bag in the interrogation room, making it seem like they had found the shovel Watkins borrowed from Carpenter. When he saw it, Watkins immediately flinched, the reaction detectives were waiting for, and then everything spiraled out of control. Confession of the crime. J.K. finally collapsed and confessed everything. He said, "I had been thinking about luring Kathy to the swampy area and stabbing her because she was causing trouble in my life by threatening my new girlfriend and trying to get Kathy's friends to beat up my new girlfriend." Watkins stated that he had planned to kill Kathy a few days before because she was a burden in his relationship with Jemmy. On the evening of April 18, 2010, Watkins lured Kathy to a swampy area near the power lines, south of his parents' house. They argued, then Watkins pulled out a knife and stabbed Kathy in the throat, killing her on the spot. After committing the crime, Watkins called John Carpenter for help. The two dug a hole thigh deep, placed Kathy's body in it, then covered it with plastic garbage bags, layers of dirt, plywood, more garbage bags and wood. Finally, they spread water from the swampy area over the grave to conceal it. J.K. also admitted that he was the one who sent the text message impersonating Kathy to her father after killing the victim. The message saying, "I'm at the mall with friends and will be home soon." After that, Watkins took Kathy's shoes as a trophy and gave them to Jemmy. Journey to the grave. On July 6, 2011, after confessing to the crime, Watkins led police to an area near Boulevard Lane Park, near 124th Avenue Southeast and Southeast 186th Street in Southeast Renton. Watkins pointed out 2 locations where he and Carpenter might have buried Kathy. However, in the span of over a year, brush had grown thick, making it difficult to pinpoint the exact location. On July 8, 2011, the search team conducted excavation, and the body was found exactly as Watkins described, buried deep, covered with multiple layers of plastic bags, dirt, and wood. The King County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed. It was Kathy Chou. Part 6. The Trial and Justice Served. Role of those involved. After Watkins confessed to the crime, John Carpenter also confirmed all details and led investigators to the burial site. In exchange for testimony against Watkins, Carpenter was granted full immunity, a controversial decision but necessary to solve the case. Jemmy Mallow, Watkins's new girlfriend, later testified that she was too afraid to speak up because she thought she would be the next victim. She was not charged and was not convicted, although her acceptance and wearing of Kathy's shoes raised many questions about her level of awareness of the crime. Not guilty plea. On July 25, 2011, Ezekiel James Watkins appeared at King County Court and officially pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder charges. Although he had confessed in detail to police and led them to the burial site, Watkins's lawyer argued that this was not premeditated murder, but just an accident that occurred during an argument. But the jury didn't believe that defense. Overwhelming evidence. Throughout the trial, prosecutors presented a series of irrefutable evidence that made Watkins's testimony meaningless before the jury. First, cell phone data showed that Kathy and Watkins had exchanged 43 text messages and calls throughout April 18th, and both phones were present at Boulevard Park at the same time Kathy went missing. This proved Watkins had lied about not seeing Kathy that night. Second, Giovanni Candelario's testimony about seeing Watkins return home covered in mud and blood around 11 p.m. on April 18th, just hours after Kathy disappeared, created a direct link between Watkins and the crime. Third, John Carpenter's detailed confession about lending Watkins a shovel with the reason of burying a dead duck on the exact night Kathy disappeared clarified that Watkins had taken preparatory action after committing the crime. Fourth, Watkins' own confession to police, in which he described in detail how he stabbed Kathy, how he buried her, and even led police to the exact burial location, made any defense of accident meaningless. And finally, the fact that Watkins sent fake text messages from Kathy's phone to her father and her friends after killing her proved that he was completely conscious and deliberately trying to cover up the crime. This was not the action of someone in an accident situation. Criminal psychology analysis. During the trial, psychology experts also revealed that Watkins suffered from fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, causing cognitive impairment and reduced impulse control. However, this did not reduce his criminal responsibility. As evidence showed, he had planned to kill Kathy days before carrying it out. Watkins admitted to police that he had been thinking about luring Kathy to the swampy area and stabbing her because she was causing trouble in his relationship with Jemmy. This was clear evidence of the purposeful and premeditated nature of the crime. Final sentence. After reviewing all the evidence, the jury concluded this was a purposeful, premeditated murder, not an accident as Watkins claimed. Ezekiel James Watkins was sentenced to 27 years in prison for first-degree murder. This sentence reflected the severity of the crime, a cold-blooded, brutal murder, carefully concealed, and carried out against an innocent young girl who trusted him. The killer turned out to be the ex-boyfriend, someone Kathy once loved and trusted. He wasn't the person she thought he was. He was the final nightmare in the short life of that 19-year-old girl. Family and community reaction. Mr. Henry Chou and Mrs. Debbie Chou had to endure more than 15 months not knowing where their daughter was, whether she was still alive, and who had done this. When the truth was revealed, their pain didn't diminish, but only shifted to another form. The pain of knowing their daughter had been betrayed and brutally murdered by someone she once loved. The Renton community, which had been a peaceful town, was also deeply shocked by this case. Neighbors, friends, and Kathy's teachers couldn't believe that such a kind, friendly girl could meet such a tragic fate. Conclusion and message. Painful lessons from the case. The disappearance and death of 19-year-old Kathy Chou was not just a cold-blooded crime, but also a profound tragedy about misplaced trust, blind love, and psychological wounds that never heal, not only for the victim, but also for her family and friends. The most frightening part isn't just the criminal act, but the callousness and deception afterward. After killing Kathy, J.K. calmly continued living, happily with his new girlfriend, even giving his girlfriend the victim's shoes as a gift. Meanwhile, Kathy's body rotted under the cold earth, as if she had never existed. This case also reveals the desperation of immigrant families, quiet, kind people who are hesitant and afraid to open up to police out of fear, cultural differences, because in their eyes, law enforcement is not a place to seek justice, but a place that might cause them more pain. A warning bell. The Kathy Chou case is not just an individual crime, but a painful warning bell about toxic relationships, about silent violence hidden in young love, and about innocence that paid the price with life. The signs were there before. Kathy's friends knew that J.K. had anger management issues and violent tendencies. That's exactly why Kathy had warned Jemmy. But no one thought he could go as far as murder. This is an important lesson. Violence in relationships usually doesn't appear suddenly, but is a process that escalates gradually. Signs like control, uncontrollable anger, extreme jealousy, and blaming others for one's own emotions. All are red flag warnings. Final justice. In the end, justice was served. J.K. was sentenced to 27 years in prison. But the price was too high. A life lost, a family destroyed, a community traumatized. And for those who loved Kathy, the sentence never ends. They will forever live with memories of her, an innocent, friendly, emotional girl, destroyed by the very person she trusted most. Mr. Henry and Mrs. Debbie Chou, who had left their homeland Taiwan to seek a better future for their daughter in America, now must live with unbearable grief. Their American dream had turned into a never-ending nightmare. If you're reading these lines, remember, sometimes the killer doesn't wear a mask, but wears a familiar face. And sometimes, the most terrifying thing isn't the crime itself, but the calmness after committing the crime. Listen to your instincts. Recognize the signs of violence, control, and manipulation in relationships. And remember that real love never makes you afraid. It never asks you to be silent, isolate you from friends and family, or make you feel responsible for someone else's emotions. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, seek help. In the United States, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone, and there are people ready to help. Kathy Chou's story is a painful reminder that life can end in the blink of an eye by the very people we trust most. But it's also a testament to the perseverance of loyal friends, the dedication of investigators, and the power of truth. No matter how long it takes, the truth will eventually be exposed. Justice may be delayed, but it will never be denied. And although nothing can bring Kathy back, Watkins' sentence brought a bit of peace to her family, the peace of knowing that the person who took their daughter will pay the price. Remember Kathy Chou, not as a victim, but as a person with dreams, friendships, and a whole life ahead. Let her story become a reminder that we must protect each other, speak up when we see something wrong, and never remain silent in the face of violence. Thank you for following the case files. If you found this story meaningful, please share it to raise awareness about violence in relationships. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit like, and leave us a comment with your thoughts. See you in the next episode, where we continue to unveil shocking crime mysteries. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, justice may be delayed, but it will never be denied.